Hey, how's it going, everybody? Today is March 16th, 2026, and this is the Daily AI Show Live. It's a Monday. We're back for another full week of shows. Really excited to have everybody join along with us, everybody in the comments, as well as everybody from our co-hosts to otherwise. So it should be a good week. I'm looking forward to it as always. With me today is Andy and Beth, and I'm Brian. And I think it's probably us. We'll see if Carl pops in the door or not. But otherwise, always something interesting going on over the weekend. Usually, when we come back on Mondays, you kind of get that, 2 days worth of AI news. AI doesn't really take the weekends off. There's always something going on around the world. I'll tell you one of the stories that uh, it was interesting was we all remember Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go is still around, obviously. I think it's probably doing very well. It's not really part of my life, but I definitely remember the big, phase or push of it. But I've also seen people like there's still like tournaments and all this other kind of stuff. Anyway, all that to say that uh the quote from I think this is AI Secret. I'm gonna say, yeah, AI Secret, but I've seen this other places too, is Pokemon Go turns players into free AI labor. You think, well, how did they do that? Well, as people were walking around with their phones playing a free game, they were also geolocating all sorts of things in the world where these free Pokemons, or they were capturing them, or however the game goes. And those were being tagged in different lighting conditions and different weather conditions and otherwise. And I like what they say here. The key takeaway, the punchline writes itself. Millions thought they were hunting cartoon creatures while quietly performing unpaid field work for the spatial AI. The old internet rule still holds. When the product is free, the real product is usually you. So I don't know. I don't know if this would really upset people or whatever, but I don't know. It made me chuckle for some reason. Just the idea of like this really fun, addictive game. I think it was during COVID, wasn't it, when it was bringing everybody outside, and there was like some positive stories about this. People being around just outside enjoying fresh air, but also playing a game with their kids and stuff like that. But obviously, all this data is being captured one way or the other. So
Yeah.
one of the stories I wanted to bring up today because I just thought, well, there you go. And as they said, if it's free, it's you. Yeah, you're paying for this. So
I feel like there were discussions about that at
mm,
the time, and it
cool.
was
Yeah.
the for me, the heyday was, pre-COVID, and, I just never got into it. I couldn't figure out why I would be excited about the things. I might be more excited about it now because it's, augmented reality and, like, something we should talk about on the show,
I
but
I mean, I was kind of shocked by this, Beth. I mean, it just goes to show you never know what like whole pockets of communities of people. There's a guy that I follow. His YouTube channel is the Tim Tracker. Anyway, it's just a family. He started it years ago. They've since had two kids, whatever. It's mostly about theme parks in Orlando, which is how I got involved with watching the channel. But he has grown to a point now where this is his full-time job along with his wife. And so he got invited out just maybe a couple videos ago out to California around Anaheim for some Pokemon Go event. I think it was at the Rose Bowl. I could be wrong about that. But he was sort of showing what was going on. And I think he was paid to go out there and obviously make content about it, whatever. But there were people hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. I mean, a lot of people waiting for something to drop and do the whole thing. And I'm certainly not poking fun at it. It was a big community event. And lots of people seemed to be having a really good time and also meeting new people. And it was all outside. And so I'm like, hey, this is better than being in some arena with a roof on. At least people are enjoying the environment. So anyway, I'm sure there's people out listening who are going to listen to this who, like, Brian, you're murdering it this time. It's like you don't understand it at all. And that might be the case. It really was more about the AI and the idea that people holding up their phones, like doing this free, field work, as they called it, which I just thought was like the best name. Like you're doing AI field work, but you don't know it because you're invested in the game or whatever. And
uh, yeah. I mean, you're doing it if you drive a Tesla too, and you paid to do that. It's
yeah,
true. You also get a car, as opposed to a new augmented reality, the image that you captured.
It
But
it makes you wonder though why like Google has not done something like this. Maybe they have gamified it, but why haven't they gamified Google Maps? Because or Apple for that matter, actually, because Apple was always sort of like, historically, remember when they put maps? I don't know. It was several years ago now, but there was a point where iPhone wouldn't allow Google Maps on the phone. They wanted you to use Maps, but Maps from Apple was hilariously worse. And so they used to always annoy me, and then they fixed that or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting that Apple has not come out with some sort of gamification, or Google hasn't, who are the two premier, you know, map I don't know, map apps, I guess. I'm sure there's others out there, obviously, but those are the two big ones that a lot of people use. So anyway, interesting story coming out of the weekend. It's not just
yeah, I think there's some things you can't do as Google and Apple, right? I
like
mean, this is like a funky, not a funky, but this is not like a major company that is using unpaid labor in that kind of way. Like it could have had real blowback for somebody like
well,
Google or Apple, who were the map providers. But
that's a good question too. Who gets the geotag training data from the makers of Pokemon Go? Which, by the way, I have no idea who that is. Who owns the rights to
oh,
Pokemon and all that? But like, who gets that data? Maybe it does flow back to the map makers and everybody. Or like, are they selling it or are they using it internally
they're using it as training data.
for themselves? You're saying you don't think they're selling it like third party? They're not selling the data.
Oh, no. I think if you have data you can sell, you eventually sell it.
Yeah.
But um, their system, they're training things as well, I believe.
Mm. Anyway, interesting story nonetheless. What piqued your guys' interest coming out of the weekend?
Well, today is the launch of GTC, NVIDIA GTC. So GTC is the GPU technology conference. It started in 2009. Jensen Huang and NVIDIA are now at the heart of everything AI. And they're the cognoscenti are referring to GTC, which is about to launch in a couple of hours, I think. Um, they're calling it the Super Bowl of AI, or if you want to think about the nostalgia that's present in the long history of GPUs and NVIDIA in the world of gaming preceding that, it's kind of like the Woodstock of AI. So um, there is going to be interesting to see what comes out of it. I think the big story is going to be how does Jensen and NVIDIA present the future of GPUs in the context of inference, where it's not ideal, and the Grok uh, acquihire thing that they did, the $20 billion that they gave to Grok to bring the inference-oriented LPU into the NVIDIA fold, that suggests that they're going to be talking a lot about inference because the time when GPUs had to be colossally stacked together in order to do training of models is kind of reducing in its need because there's already these training data centers in the hands of the frontier model developers. Now the big demand for processing is for actual real-time inference, especially with the advent of everybody's got a claw, right? So now cloud-based inference and or local inference using fast processors on local devices, all of that is what the future of chips and processing in AI is mostly about, rather than just training. We've kind of passed through the early phases where putting together major data centers for training AI is the major source of demand, and has driven the value of NVIDIA up over 4 trillion. So we're going to hear about what their ideas are that are going to help NVIDIA defend itself against entries like Cerebras, which has a much faster inference chip,
Mhm.
their wafer scale chip technology, and then also robotics and autonomous vehicles. There's
So
going
I
to
have
be a
a
lot
question.
of discussion around those things at GTC. Go ahead, Bern.
No, I just had a question. I mean, to either of you guys, but you know, obviously the sort of OpenClaw era, let's call it, or the, multi-agents running, when Jensen Huang stands on stage and holds something, the size of my wallet or smaller, and it's now the most powerful, whatever, right? Or even smaller than that. And he's like, blah, blah, blah. Well, obviously that didn't get manufactured in the last 6 months, probably. So I'm curious what you guys think is like, for them to be continuously successful as they have been in NVIDIA or any of the chip manufacturers, they obviously have to be betting on the future. And do you think, just like based on watching how things were growing, that they were saying to themselves, I'm going to guess over a year ago, and that's probably being generous, or being understating it, I would say, something like an open claw is coming, whether they could have put their finger on the pulse and said, oh, because then why wouldn't they created it, right? But like something like that is coming. Okay, it's coming. We need to have chips that adjust towards this new type of, a different way of looking at inference for this. This is hardware. We're not talking about somebody just had an idea for Claude Code and stood it up and it got successful internally and somebody turned it outwardly. This is hardware and very, very, very precise hardware, as we found out with like, the what's it called? The Taiwan company, the chip manufacturer, but it's in the States.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC.
TSMC, thank you. But my point to bringing that up was like we know that like getting, and I'm gonna murder this, so I apologize, but like they're able to do 4 microns or something in the States, and they're working towards 2. Taiwan can already do this, right? That's like, this is a big deal. These are, dust proof rooms and the whole thing. I just say that to say like hardware is hard for a reason. And so this stuff doesn't just happen overnight. I know they're always continuously evolving at NVIDIA, but how do you guys think they plan for and adjust towards, or is it the same trajectory regardless with AI? And they're like, this stuff is going to happen in this pacing. And yes, to us, we see the open clause, the my clause, and we go, ooh, that's new and shiny or whatever. But from NVIDIA's standpoint, they're like, yeah, we're not really reacting to that kind of stuff. We have a 6 or 10-year model and we just build towards that because that's the eventuality.
Well, Beth, you probably have a perspective on this as well, but I think that, NVIDIA went through a transition with the GPU, which is their core expertise. That's their core competence, where originally they were selling GPUs to individuals in the form of a PC, and you add this high-powered GPU in order to have a high-end gaming machine. So that's really where they cut their teeth. So they were selling a device that was being ultimately delivered to an individual consumer, a local device. So it's in their nature to anticipate that there's eventually a local computing device that is AI proficient. And it's a combination of a GPU and maybe new architectures that can make this thing happen efficiently and with low power, which is not the case with the GPU, which has this quadratic expansion of computation in order to do the math inside a GPU. They're looking to shrink that down and get it into the form that's low power and highly adapted to doing AI inference on the local device.
Right.
Okay.
And
So I think they're seeing that clearly in their future, and that's what they're moving for. Let me just add one quick thing, Beth, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, which is the shrinking it down part is also a natural part of the overall objective of chip design and manufacture, which is let's get more transistors onto this tiny little piece.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so you referred to microns, but it's actually nanometers. Now there's these dies that do the silicon that originally were at 4 nanometers, and then are 3 nanometers is its current kind of mass market scale of the size of the transistors that are going on to the silicon. And now there are fabs with 2 nanometers. And there's new chips just coming out with 2 nanometers as their sort of resolution for imprinting onto those chips. So everything's shrinking down, everything's going local. I think that's a natural part of the progression. Beth.
Right. And NVIDIA famously listened to the people who are using their technology back when it was majority gamers.
Sure.
That's a part of the culture. It's like they're anticipating what's happening, but they're not anticipating they're anticipating what's going to happen, but not in a vacuum. The people who are actually using their systems are sending the information back like this is the next thing that we need. And they already have a history of knowing what signal to pay attention to. Right.
I guess so. I mean, it's really fascinating to me, and I'm sure they're not the only ones. But people are mentioning AMD in the comments, and yes, of course, there's other companies that aren't just the NVIDIA. It just happened to be that Andy, you were talking about the conference, but it's fascinating to me because I don't know how quickly they can invent something new or like have a new chip or whatever. It's a continuous process. I understand that, but AI is it's pivoting in some of the things we've seen even just in the last 6 months now, end of 2025 and all of 2026, have really shifted the landscape a bit. But if you're those companies and you're not just a software company, you're always hedging your bet on future tech that really hasn't come out yet. And they're doing it successfully and have been doing this successfully for years. To both of y'all's point, it's just sort of it's impressive to me at a really, really large scale. And again, I don't mean to just single out NVIDIA, but to be continuously sort of right. And I'm sure they've had their missteps along the way. But to be right like that is impressive, versus other companies seem to struggle with that same kind of
Oh, yeah. And when you're a $4 trillion company, you have plenty of resources, not only to spend on people inside who are at the cutting edge of the architectures that you're designing, but also to make investments in all the little companies out there that are at the cutting edge, right? So they are a catchment for the latest and greatest. So it's not surprising to me that they have this almost impregnable position. By the way, Greg mentioned in the chat that there's a rumor even that NVIDIA is going to come out with an x86, which is a CPU architecture
Mm.
as part of that. And because of Nano Claw or Open Claw and Nano and all the many, many claws, now the orchestration of multiple agents is a key part of computing.
Yeah.
And that's not a GPU skill. Like the GPU is not the best architecture for that. A CPU is. A CPU does that kind of marshaling much better. And so the design for these agentic computing stacks is going to be a combination of a CPU and a GPU, as it is right now in your computer, right? So if you buy an M series computer on the same chip, they've got CPU cores and GPU cores. Okay,
Yep.
all of it's stacked together. And that's one of the advances I think that Apple has presented when they designed their M series chips. Um, now, NVIDIA isn't building their own CPUs, they're partnering with Intel to do it. And that just came out as an announcement this past week. So there's a collaboration that's going to happen between Intel and NVIDIA now to build out this new architecture that's the combination of CPUs, really, really fast CPUs, and really, really fast GPUs together, working agents with onboard intelligence.
So that's interesting. Brian, you were talking about Intel last year, maybe the year before, about the challenges that they had, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm curious whether this is something that can rehabilitate Intel in some ways. I mean, they didn't, but right? I mean, you don't have to have it's not like everything they created was bad, but
Yeah.
there was enough, like, the bad apples in the thing that you're like, "No, I'm gonna go to another Apple vendor
Well,
like much."
what was bad
And it
about
was apples, actually. I didn't plan that, but that's funny.
the Intel's supposed failure was that they missed the boat on inference. and training. So they did not have the right tool set for the AI companies to build on Intel rather than on NVIDIA. So NVIDIA took all of that market share. Well, now CPUs are becoming more important again. And and then so NVIDIA is stepping in.
I want to just bring this up really quick from Gareth. He said they're probably one of the, speaking about NVIDIA, they're probably one of the only large companies that is agile enough to make quick shifts. And Gareth, you're probably right there. And what I would say is just bouncing off of what you said, Andy, they're so large that I would imagine at any one time, maybe the real answer here is that no, they don't always guess right. They just always have 10 things moving at once, and one of them is going to be right, or two of those are going to be right. And they're big enough and maybe agile enough that the nine, you'll never hear the light of day, but they're moving on them in case they are in fact do it. So, it could be that the real answer here is that there are many departments where people are working on stuff at NVIDIA and similar like companies that just simply never make it out of the starting blocks because that's not the way the wind shifted. That's not the way AI goes. And with AI, you really can't probably just bet on you can't just bet on one solution. We talk about that at our level. We talk about that about not going all in and putting all your eggs in one basket for one model. At their level, they're talking about, obviously much, much bigger part of it, which kind of is a quick pivot here because I was going to throw it over to you, Beth, for some of the news you saw. But just since this is still talking about this, did you guys see the news about Z or Z.ai? They're claiming to be the first to come out with a like sort of claw first model, essentially, and it's called GLM-5, new flagship model for chat, coding, and agentic tasks. And
That came out a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Oh, this did?
Yeah.
Yeah, my bad.
Yep.
I'm not that. I missed it. Okay, never mind. For whatever reason, it hit my news cycle today, but we can move on if that already came out.
No, but the relevance of GLM-5 to the claw ecosystem, I didn't think of that as something. But when GLM-5 came out, Z.ai went way up on the open source leaderboards because of the ability for agentic reasoning. So I think that's a key part of it. Everybody's interested in that agentic reasoning skill set. And I think it maxes out the open source models position on the leaderboards for that.
And I'm just curious before, like, had you guys heard of this company before? I mean, I always think of like Z.ai or Z.ai, like who, how much did you pay for that one letter .ai? So me, first of all, who's backing that? Like, cause this is Chinese company.
It's a Chinese company.
Is it?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So we, while you were busy doing real work, we were on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Real.
We were talking about.
Had you guys heard of it though? Had you guys already, when you talked about it a couple of weeks ago, were you like, oh yeah, Z.ai? Because I don't think I've ever heard of this company. So, but I mean, that's nothing new. Things miss me all the time. But anyway.
Before it released GLM-5, I had never heard of it.
Okay. Yeah. They pay double or more. What I just said, hundreds of thousands. Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, one letter .ai. I don't care what letter it is. Never mind Z. Any one letter. I'll say any 3-letter .ai domain is.
Yeah. No, I don't think F.ai is going for a lot of money right now.
You don't think F.ai? I bet she is going for a lot. Anyway, all right. Well, there's old me. I like return old beers every once in a while just to see if people are keeping.
Okay, so weaving back into the new news. Let's ease back to the new news because I wanted to mention that in this context of shrinking down not only the hardware but the models to make them work in agentic local mode, because one of the things that was distinctive about the whole emergence of clause was, oh, you need to have it on a Mac Mini because you don't really want it working out there, and it'll let it reach out to the cloud to get the reasoning inference, but everything that's going to happen locally on your Mac Mini, especially with respect to all your files and the security and privacy of your own machine, you want to kind of isolate that so it's sitting on a separate machine. At least that was the notion at the time. Well, there's a time coming when that same Mac Mini, at least a high-end Mac Mini, can do not only the claw component of this, multi-agent, you know, continuous 24/7 operation, but also it will have an inference engine built into it, right? It's going to have, or you will load an inference engine onto it. So in this context, Stanford just released um, a thing called Open Jarvis. Open Jarvis is an open source framework for building personal AI agents that run entirely on device. That can be a Mac Mini or it can be your phone. The project comes from Stanford's Scaling Intelligence Lab, and it's both a research platform that researchers can use, but it's also deployment-ready infrastructure for local first AI systems. The focus is, I'm reading just from their, blurb on it. The focus is not only model execution, but also broader software stack required to make on-device agents usable, measurable, and adaptable over time. So according to the team, most current personal AI projects, the claws, let's call them, still keep the local component relatively thin while routing core reasoning to the cloud. That design introduces latency, recurring costs, and data exposure concerns, especially for assistance agents, read clause, that operate over personal files, messages, and persistent user content. Open Jarvis is designed to shift that balance by making local execution the default, so a small model running on the local device, and cloud usage optional. So come on, Stanford. They're building something that will, and there's, as we've watched over the past couple of weeks, everybody's got a claw now. We're playing internally with Open Claw, Nano Claw, Perplexity Claw, and GemSpark Claw.
I saw Judy off over the weekend, and then yes, I was traveling, so I was sort of out of the loop a little bit. But I just started to see the Slack messages go, and you guys talking about this and sharing tokens, and I thought, yeah, they're on about something, but I don't have time to slow down to look at it. I was just more in the car and stuff like that.
It was actually Carl. It was actually Carl who kicked it off because he added his GenSpark Claw to the to a Slack channel, and I said welcome, not thinking. I added it and said welcome and was like, hey, and it answered me.
Yeah.
Like, hey, there's a whole thing, and I was like, oh,
So
I can use Carl's Claw bot. And that
yeah,
was
which
the-
is a
that
really
was the
interesting.
conversation.
It's an interesting distinction for that particular claw, the GenSpark claw, because prior to that, I had loaded Perplexity Computer, which is a claw-like, always-on running computer agent that Perplexity launched, and I called it Purple Claw, and put it into that Slack. And what we found was Junmi tried to talk to Purple Claw, but it required that he log into his own Perplexity account in order to get the response. Which then Carl added GenSpark Claw, and that wasn't a requirement. Any one of you can burn Carl's tokens on GenSpark Claw just by talking to that computer claw inside the channel that it's added to.
Yeah.
And Carl, so it's not that all GenSpark claws will do that. Carl said he left it open.
Yeah.
And then was like, hey, don't burn all the tokens. And it's interesting because I was curious whether I could add tokens. Like, could we be part of a team for those of us who have GenSpark? And we don't know the answer to that question, but I did set up my Perplexity so I can talk to computer now.
Oh, yeah, good.
Very nice.
And that worked.
Andy had triggered something for me to say, Beth, but I feel like we got to keep going back at you. So I'm going to shut up so you can share what you want, and then I'm going to come back to Andy's comment because I was like, otherwise it'll just be us talking over you. So please.
All right. So on Thursday or Friday last week, I was in an app building workshop for building production-ready apps. And this is a little bit of a weave off Andy's talking about and you talking about what domains are available. I have long had an idea for a podcast player that I could talk to, right? Like my big frustration is that I am somewhere listening to a podcast. I get a totally like, wow, that's amazing. I really want to talk about it. And Siri won't talk to me. Alexa not so much either, right? Like I'm wanting a situation that is not available to me then. So I built the app. And I looked for Podcast Buddy and like podcastbuddy.com, Podcast Buddy. Like there are so many podcast buddies. They're all taken up.
Mm.
Podcastbuddy.app was not. I was like, excellent. Let's do that. So I spent the workshop and then I spent the weekend building this. I'll share as we move forward what this process is like. I will say that I was building with Claude Code in the terminal and I was using compound engineering plugin. I have my first the setting is LFG. Like, I told you what I want.
Yeah.
Go do it. That's
yeah.
very exciting. And the
Yeah.
LFG process plans it, does it, reviews it, and then compounds the learning from it. So there were a lot of things that happened over the weekend. And for people who are building or not yet building, but maybe want to be, Claude announced that people on the max plans have a 1 million context window. So that 200 token context, and you're just like, it's like 4% left. Can we just do this one other thing? Can we like write down what we've been doing the whole time? That is no longer an issue, but I do find that like the whole million, it's not ready to like experience the whole million at the same time.
Right.
So
Still needs some action. Still needs.
About 58% of tokens used was like, all right, everybody's tired, right? Like you're tired, I'm tired. Let's just move on.
Yeah.
Other thing that they announced.
Let me just add something to that one. You said on the max plan, but it's also available to Pro in both Sonnet and Opus.
1 million?
1 million, yeah.
Oh, so then that's interesting. So in the max plan, it's the same price. Is it the same price for the Pro?
Don't know.
So that's
you mean the token
yeah.
on
So
the API, you mean?
yeah. So when I log into Claude Code, hey Carl, when I log into Claude Code, I get on the terminal, I get a message because there's always a message that greets you like, hey, did you know that this exists? And it says 5x more tokens at the same price. And that is default for.
Yeah, I think they're just noting that because you're a Pro user, you don't have max.
I'm a max. No,
you're
I
a
do have
max.
max.
Okay. Maybe they, yeah. I don't
Maybe
know.
it's default.
That may be a reflection of the limits, not the context window.
Okay. And maybe it's default for the max users and it's not default for the Pro. Yeah. So that was the first very exciting thing that happened on Friday. And then they also announced that because we're such great users and they want to make us happy, and probably because Codex limits are also doubled, they have announced that for the next 2 weeks until March 27th, the usage limits are doubled outside their peak hours. So East Coast peak is 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Anything outside of that, you get double usage of your tokens, double usage limits, and the doubling doesn't count in your weekly limits, right? So you're not using up your weekly limit faster because you're using these, I don't know, ghost tokens, doubled. Yeah. So that was very exciting. There was an announcement. I wish Aaron were here because there was someone I follow from Australia who was saying basically we're good all day. Do it all day. We're not. Like, we're totally opposite of it.
Yeah. It's great if you're opposite time. I'll talk a little bit just learning experience over the weekend. So as I was saying, I was took a bit of a road trip, my wife and I, to the other side of the state. So, but it was from where I am up to Jacksonville. So it was a 4-hour ride. Um, Side note, we were both agreeing, my wife and I were both agreeing that there is a world of difference between a 3-hour car trip and a 4-hour car trip. And then we both felt it immensely that 3 is doable and 4 just seems like forever in a day. But she was driving for a bit. And so I had nothing to do but, play around on my phone, just sitting in the front seat. And I thought, oh, I'm curious what I can do with Claude Code from my phone. And so that led me down a big rabbit hole, and I'm just sharing it because, like, I figure other people are probably like, "Can I Claude Code from my phone?" And the answer is like yes, but no. Basically, what you need to do is you need to connect through GitHub, and that there's a like built-in app that gets connected to a repo that you have in there. And where I was having trouble over and over again is every time I would go to my Claude Code, Beth, it would only show me your repos that we had shared through like other, for Bruno and stuff. And I was like, no, I'm not building in Beth's repo. You know what I mean? But it insisted that I use Beth in her repos. And so anyway, I went down this rabbit hole because I was like, well, what can I or can I not do? And so anyway, it uses essentially the CLI, the command line interface through GitHub as a wrapper, essentially. And then you have to use like push commands essentially and triggers in order to make things work. And ultimately, I did not end up doing it. If anybody's wondering, can I just use Claude Code on my phone the same way I use Claude Desktop? The answer is no. However, I will tell you that is a bit confusing because when you look at it, it sure looks exactly like Claude Code from the desktop. And so if you're like me and you're thinking like, wow, if it quacks and looks like a duck, it's probably a duck. It's not a duck, it turns out. It's similar to a duck, but you still have to go through GitHub to go do it. And
It's duck-ish.
yeah.
Are you talking about the remote feature? The
No.
remote control feature?
Yeah, just literally if I wanted to use
Oh,
Claude Code on my phone connected to a repo. So I wasn't trying to like use my local files on my phone that they wanted you, it's very clear. They want you to connect through GitHub to do this CLI app interface to it, not the remote is the way it read out.
oh, because I've been coding with the remote. So that
You probably already have a project started and you're remoting into that project.
like I have 3 of them. Yeah, I'm remoting into 3. Like, are you talking about like actually starting a project?
Correct.
Rarely, yeah.
Couldn't do that. Now, I will tell you, so that's a good, Carl pointed that out. Yes, if the project exists, I could remote from my phone into that project and continue working on it. But I was stuck because I only had my phone with me and I couldn't do it in the car, right? So probably had I known that, I would have set this up before I left the house and set myself up for success, right? Ultimately, what I ended up doing at my in-laws was where I was hanging out because I pulled out my laptop and I was able to do that. Now, I will tell you guys, what was I trying to do on the phone? What was my big idea? Well, I wanted to play around more with Google's latest embeddings 2 model that's very high multimodal. Not only because I wanted to understand it better for what I'm doing in Project Bruno, but I just wanted to see what I could do. And so you guys tell me if you think this is a good idea. I've only built a little bit of it. I've only like lightly tested this, but here was my idea for the Google embeddings 2 that, we all have stuff around the house that we can't remember where we put it. We put away our Christmas decorations 1 year later. You go, man, I really should have labeled that better. You put stuff in junk drawers and you go, I don't know, it's lost to the world. You have closets in your house or whatever. Well, the whole idea was you just take your phone and you hover over the drawer, your junk drawer, whatever the drawer is in your kitchen, and you just videotape it. And because of the embeddings 2, it's capable of looking at what's in that drawer, and then you just label it as like drawer 2 in the kitchen or whatever on it. And it takes a stock of what's in there And then essentially what you're able to do is you get on your phone and you go like, where are my gray scissors? Or in my case, where is this tool? I need to do it for my entire garage because I have too many tools and too many different buckets. And where is this tool? And then the simple app that I was building essentially just says like, yeah, that's the gray scissors. That's in the drawer or whatever. And then what I was doing was using it and playing like a bit of hot and cold, where it's almost like that Pokemon Go stuff. Like you turn your phone to it, the phone starts turning red, and it's like that way. The scissors are that way, and take it to, which is unnecessary for where are the scissors in the house. It was more about like what can this embedding model do. But I think it's like it's fun to think about because if it is audio, if it is visual, if it is text, right? That becomes pretty big because I can take a picture or a video of a drawer or a video of my house. And if it's located at that like geolocation spot, essentially, then you do basically have all the pieces and parts you need, especially through the 80K through your like iPhone to basically have a Pokemon Go type. No, I didn't say that just happened to be, that story was today, but in my mind, I was thinking like, oh, that's a fun thing. So now here's my next idea. You guys know I'm going on this big cruise ship. Can I just create an app and go create a hide and seek hot and cold game on the cruise ship? And you just geolocate, because then what it would do is it would say is like, it wouldn't tell you where the scissors are. In this case, let's say it's a piece of art. It's saying, it would say to you on the app, I'm thinking about trees near a river. I'm thinking about, you'd be like, trees near a river, oh, there's an art piece that's a trees near a river. Maybe it's by that. I saw it by a certain staircase on the cruise ship. And then you could literally play hot or cold. Like you could do it with your kids. You could do it like that model allows you to do a lot of really cool things. So, anybody in the comments that happens to be listening to this, I'm interested in seeing the next hot or cold game that you could play with anybody because you can video it, geolocate it, embed it. It's a vector embedding, and then just basically turn around and have it give the model will take care of doing the clues for you. Because if it knows what's around that painting, that's your go find it, and it understands it, it can just figure out clues to give. And I'm sure you could probably tell it like give harder or easier clues, or say the act of the ship, or if you were doing it in your house and you hid your kids, if you have like Andy, grandkids, right? Like their 5 favorite toys, just underneath the blanket or whatever. And you'd be like, all right, let's go try to figure it out. Is it hot or cold, hot or cold? So anyway, all of this happened in the car while we're in, and none of it actually got built to full completion, but this is where my brain went, as it typically does when I have too much time.
I like your thinking, but my junk drawers do have a problem compared to yours. Yours apparently have one layer at the bottom with all the parts neatly labeled.
Organized
Joe,
drawers.
this is 6 layers deep.
Yes.
You have no idea what's below there.
Yes.
Also, Gwen is pointing out the advantage of having what you find be augmented reality and therefore not movable by human hands, because this works great until someone comes in and says, oh, the gray scissors, that's what I was looking for, and I now put them in a kitchen drawer, and now you have no idea.
That's right. That's why you have
Just a little
to
bit
tag
here,
everything.
and ask Carl a question. Carl, for those of us who haven't used remote, explain what that is on the device. Is it a separate app on the mobile phone that you use to remote into Claude or whatever? I've not tried remote. How are you using that?
Whatever project you're in Claude Code, you essentially, there's a / command / remote, and then it'll once you hit that, you go on your, let's say in your mobile phone, you can do anything that you want to do.
Are you in the Claude app on your phone?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So you have the Claude app, which you get down from the app stores. And then when you initiate / remote on your desktop instance of CLI in Claude Code, then it's enabled in your mobile app.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And you're not using the terminal, so it doesn't matter that I can't remember exactly what it is, but there's a way to show a QR code. You take the picture on the QR code, you're in that session on your phone.
Huh?
Otherwise, it's a URL, which
Mm.
Whisperflow makes that very nice. Now I can dictate
it's
a
an
URL.
The mobile app doesn't show you the options of the various /remote enabled projects that you've got?
I did not experience it that way.
Okay.
So
For mine, it would continuously show me when you go to at the very bottom of the screen in Claude Code, it'll show you the repos that you have access to on there. But I'm not sure how that would work with remote on it.
And you're talking about the iPhone app now.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
the
I was
most
gonna say it's a little weird because it's like it's there and it looks very, very similar to desktop, but it just doesn't have the exact same functionality, which I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand. Are you going to create 16 different MD files directly on your phone? It gets a little whatever, but it just seemed like there was options here for cloud-based or whatever. But I guess the answer is really like, no, you have it, you remote into it, or you do it through the CLI command line in GitHub, because that clearly is a thing. I just didn't I got to it and I was good. I set up a new like repo and all that stuff on my phone, did all that stuff. But then I ran into issues with like the it's not called, there's like actions or push commands on it. And they didn't, I was like, I don't really know where to go with this. That I'm sure is my own just limitations because I am not building in the command line like you are, Beth. And so you may have looked at that and said like, oh, I know what to do next. But because I've only really been building on the desktop, that didn't translate for me as quickly, you know? And also I was in a phone and at some point you're like, all right, I'm not doing this on my phone in the car anymore. I'm going to move on to something else. But I spent a solid hour probably going down all sorts of different paths with it or whatever. And just wanted to share because I would imagine somebody else is thinking that like, oh, here it is. Why can't I use it the way I think I'm supposed to use it? You know?
right. Well, it is so the various places where you use it are not speaking to each other, right?
Mm.
Like if unless I'm using remote, and then it's like I'm speaking to a walkie-talkie that's attached to my laptop. I found last week I ended up using it when I was commuting and then coming back, and I was able to approve the things that were running. It set a bunch of things up. That is my preferred use case because then it doesn't. I'm not really typing on my phone or like doing a lot of stuff on my phone, but I was approving the various things that need to be approved.
Yeah. I would imagine too, just to sort of wrap up this part of it, Beth, Carl, whoever's using remote, that has to be open and running on a computer somewhere,
Yes.
right? So in my instance, I would have gone to this desktop that I'm at right now at my house. I would have made sure that Claude Code was open on desktop, that I was in that project, and it was just sitting there. Whether my computer went to sleep or not shouldn't matter, but it's
No,
just
it
open and sitting there.
It does.
it does. It
It does.
absolutely. Carl and Beth like
Really?
it totally matters. So on the Mac, there's a setting that says don't go to sleep when the monitor turns off. Right.
Gotcha. So you would have to do something like that with, so it literally has to be running as the answer.
It does, because I remember it would disappear from your device, like whatever you were. I was like, why is it not here anymore? And it's my computer sleeping or something.
Got it.
You're right, Brian. Like, how much are you possibly going to be doing on your phone? Like, it's a different experience from like unless you're like, okay, I've got a project to do, I gotta go somewhere. It's like you probably want to do most of this on your desktop.
Yeah.
Because of reasons, right? It's like, yes, you could do it. There's some fun stuff you could do, but like I'm trying to figure out situations where you're like, okay, I gotta do my actual work on my phone.
Ideas, I think is where my brain was. But to be fair, Claude was also like, hey, bud, just use Claude. It was like, it kept pushing back on me. And I was like, yeah, got it, Claude. But I was like, but I want to use code. And it kept saying to me, you know, I could do most of this. So if you're looking for a project requirement document or a TRD or something, like just use Claude. Why would you need code to do this? I will set it all up for you. We'll come up with a great plan. And when you're ready, give it to Code. And I was like, yeah, noted, Claude. I'm in the car. I got it. Like, I also still want to go build this in Code. So even it was kind of pushing me and saying, like, there is an answer here. Like, if you're idea generating and you're like, oh, I have an idea and I don't want to lose it, like as if
Yeah.
it was I had a song idea, and you want to quickly get it down somewhere. That is the right answer. Claude, any of them, you would iterate on the idea for the project requirement document that would then eventually be handed over to a Claude Code or a Codex or whatever, or any other
Right.
Claude.
There's a question we have to answer here, which is related. And that is the one use case I can imagine for having the phone is you've set something up and it's kicked off and it's running, but you have it set so that it has to ask permission for various moves. And you can do that remotely from the phone while you're doing some other things. You don't have to actually sit there and nursemaid your computer. So let's answer this question for Cisco, which is what are the settings in Claude Code that allow it to proceed like LFG? Like
Bypass permissions. You have to go into the settings and then you have to toggle it on. And then once you have it toggled on in your session at the bottom, you have a drop down of ask permissions, auto accept edits, plan mode, and then the new one is bypass permissions. That puts a nice little orange box around and it says high risk. Claude can take actions without asking, including modifying or deleting files. See safe use tips, and that kind of stays in there so that it puts a shadow around it so you're in bypass permissions, but that untethers it. So if you feel safe, at least on the desktop, you can go to bypass permissions and it will run on its own for quite some time. I've had it though go too far and had to have it undo stuff. So you do have to be careful with it for sure.
And it's a good idea if you're doing that you have set up Git and GitHub so that it's easier to roll things back.
Yeah.
Because that's a process that's part of the repo. And Gareth is giving the command. If you're doing it in the terminal, you can't just go to permissions to do it. You have to do it when you log into Claude, and that's the thing. Claude hyphen dangerously hyphen skip hyphen permissions.
Yeah.
So,
I love the date.
When you put that in though, you still have the option Shift Tab to switch between accept,
Yes.
between plan mode, right? So
Yeah.
you just get the additional option. You can still switch back and forth, right? It's still a good idea to, do all the planning in plan mode.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And then if you're all good with everything, then you hit wherever you are, you danger skip permissions, bypass whatever, execute it, and you can take off, and that's it.
I was about to say the same thing. If you've gotten through the plan and you agree, I mean, again, everybody should do what they are comfortable with, obviously. But if you're at a point where you're like, yeah, well, I'm in lockstep, and now I feel like the only thing left would be me sitting here saying yes, yes, yes. You do have now the option of doing the bypass permissions or the alternative. It does save a lot of time. I mean, it is very helpful. The other day I did it. I was lunchtime for me, which is usually when I'll go upstairs and work out on the tonal. And so I turned it on because I knew it had a bit of work to do and it had some iterating to do. And I gave it access to the Chrome tab, just one Chrome tab. And it went and did iterations and looked for bugs and then did more iterations to look for bugs. So that when I came back after my lunch hour, a full hour's worth of work had been done in my absence. And so that to me is like super, super powerful. But then I turned it off again, right? Because I was here and I was babysitting it again and stuff. So I do agree with you, Carl. Like, not always. Sometimes makes more sense than other times to do it. But again, cautionary tale. I caught it one time and it was still moving because I had told it to bypass permissions. And I caught one of the paragraphs and I was like, wait, wait, and then pause. Why are you doing this? And it's like, my bad. I jumped to basically conclusions and I had to roll back the last work. Yeah.
This is a big thing that happened over the weekend. One thing about permissions, what I end up doing after, like, we've set a big plan, we know what we're gonna build, what we're doing. I then have a conversation like, okay, so let's look at this from a permission standpoint. What can I pre-approve? Right? Like, what are you going to do with subagents? Where can all of these pieces go? So that I have a sense of we're pre-approving a bunch of things, and then I'm going to need approval to push the update and like
Yeah.
3 things down the road or something. So that's why, yeah. And Gareth is saying that's why get stuff done is a planner for me. The plan is part of the compound engineering sequence, and it's helpful in that context to know what you're setting up.
Yeah.
So if you're not sure, have it analyze what you just talked about, right? Like, I didn't go to dangerously skip permissions until once in this workshop and once yesterday because I wasn't ready for it then. But
Yeah.
Carl, you're
That's
muted.
the right answer for
You're
it. For
trying to
sure.
talk. We're talking over you.
No. I don't know if anybody uses Codex because I've been pretty much running Codex for the past. Been most of it. Like it's been really good. You do have full like there is a full access mode, so most of this stuff is done but it is fantastic. You run Spark on it, and it is like turbocharged, like amazing things. Codex Spark on extra heavy, or I think extra high. It was like loved it. Loved the so if anyone does the work, I kind of like the UI in Codex much better than Claude Code. Just I don't know why, but I just find it's just for me a better UI. The skill setting, the automation setting, kind of just if you haven't tried it, go try it. Kind of
I have it. I'm actually that person. I have it because it's like shiny object, and I'm trying to not do that as much, but I am like all the time. I kind of want to go back to my claw and play in there. And I like I've told you guys I haven't because it's just one more thing right now. When I'm building hot and cold games that I'm not even intended to like, I have to put that on a shelf and go like, I'll come back to that. That's not the most important thing I build right now. Although it sounds like a hell of a lot of fun.
No, but that's like a fun LFG kind of situation, right? Like build and then like, sure, you're in your little box, build this. I don't know, like go do your thing.
Yeah. I may try to set that up and see how far it'll go on its own. I mean, once it has the API access and stuff, it should be able to do it pretty quick. It requires having some cloud, obviously, if you're going to try to run it as a little local on your phone or whatever. So there's some complexities there that are, but yeah, I don't think it's a hard build for what it is. You're really relying on one model's ability, which was the whole point anyway, which is like, how far can I Carl always says like, oh great, I have this new thing. How do I break it? And so that was my thing was like, how far can you push Google's new embedding to? I want to know where the upper limits are of this. So if I give it audio or video and how good is it out of the box, essentially, so whatever those little examples are, little hide and seek games or otherwise, it's really just like, how far can you push that model,
Right.
So you're right. That's probably a good, like, set it and forget it. And just, since it's not something I need for work or anything like that, it's just more of a trial. Who cares if it runs by itself for a little while? If it's broken at the end, it's broken at the end. I haven't really lost anything. And well, back to our point about use the off-hour tokens to do it, so you're not even paying as much. You're not really feeling the brunt of it if you're kind of messing around.
I've told this to Andy, but that's how Podcast Buddy happened.
Mm.
I wanted to test building with something that I knew the idea well enough that I could do it, but that I didn't like feel pain when it doesn't work, right? It's like, all right, let's just do the thing.
Yeah. There's a big difference. I'll go back to the analogy my dad said to me. My dad used to love working on cars. He was good at it too. This is before everything was computers and all that. We're talking about the 80s and 90s. And anyway, he had an 86 Ford Escort, which was eventually my car. It was passed down through my brother and then down to me. And that was my first car. And anyway, but when I was a kid, he was working on it in the garage, and I came out as a kid, and I see my dad, he would come home from work, get out of his white button-up shirt, and at Delta and then start working on this car till like 10 o'clock at night in the garage. and pulling out the, all the parts and pieces and small head block and all the stuff. And so anyway, I sat down on the stairs and I said to my dad, he's probably my age or younger now, which is crazy. And I said, "Oh, Dad, you must be having so much fun. Every day you get to come home from work and work on cars. You're just a kid, you know?" And my dad stops the wrench. I mean, just like out of a movie, like, stops the wrench. And he turns to me really politely. And he's like, "Brian, there's a difference between doing things because you like to do them and because you need the car by Friday." I said, "Oh, okay." So that's always what's stuck in my head is the analogy of like, you can be doing the exact same thing, right? Beth, you could be using Claude Code or Codex, doing the same process. It's quite a difference if a client is waiting for it to be delivered on Friday, or you're doing it because you want to build the podcast buddy or the hot and cold or whatever. So anyway, just thought I'd share a little story from my childhood, a good life lesson from Dad along the way. By the way, he did fix it in 5 days and was driving it again. So kudos to my dad who knew his way around an engine block. All right. Well, listen, we're over time, so we're going to go ahead and wrap things up. But we'll see all y'all back hopefully for the rest of the week. Thanks to everybody in the comments hanging out. Thanks for the questions, the comments, everything there above and beyond. I didn't even get to one of the topics I was going to talk about today, so I'll wait for tomorrow for that. That'll be fun. So that's it, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us on Monday. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so come on back for a little bit of green AI fun, and we'll see you then. All right, bye.